Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhvacharya Vande Guru Om Sahanaavadhanatu Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvadavati Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. So we are on the
Om Namah Shivaya.
11th verse. So let us chant that together. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Ashocyanan Vashocastvam
Ashocyanandvashocastvam
Prajñāvādāṃsca bhāṣase
Prajñāvādāṃsca bhāṣase
Gatāsu nagatāsumsca
Gatāsu nagatāsumsca
Nānuṣocanti panditaः
Nānuṣochanti panditaः.
Okay. So this we saw the introduction to this verse in the last class, and today we will look at the actual words. So we said that many topics are discussed in the Gita, and that is why Gita is known as Brahma Vidya as well as what? Brahma Vidya and Karma Yoga also. Both are discussed. I would once again request whoever it is who is unmuting herself not to do that because it disturbs the recordings. Okay. Now look at the second line of the verse. Before we start the first line, we will look at the second line. The last two words, which actually breaks down to three words. So, Nanu Shochanti Panditaha. When you rearrange that, it becomes Panditaha Na Anushochanti. So, Anushochanti means to grieve. Shoka is grief. Anu is to follow. Anushochanti means the person is going after grief. He is grieving. Panditaha is Atmagnani. And therefore he says, Panditaha, the Atmagnani, na Anushochanti. He has no grief. And from this, you can derive a corollary. Right? If the Jnani does not grieve, then who is the person who grieves?
Ajnani.
So that corollary we must remember. Because since we are not Jnanis, Krishna telling us that Panditaha na Anushochanti is of no use to us. Because we are not Panditaha. And therefore we have to derive from there that if you are grieving, if sorrow is striking us, then we should understand that we are Ajnanis. And what is the only medicine for Jnanam?
Shastram.
Jnanam is Shastram. The only medicine for Ajnanam is Jnanam. Jnanam is Shastram only. So if there is darkness in the room, the only remedy is light. If there is ignorance, Ajnanam in our mind, the only remedy is Jnanam. And that Jnanam comes only from Shastram. And therefore, again and again, you will hear these words. Jnanat eva kaivalyam. Kaivalyam means moksha. Jnanat eva. From Jnanam alone comes moksha. The eva is very important. If somebody simply says Jnanat kaivalyaha, it leaves us open to interpretation. So from Jnanam, moksha comes. Maybe from karma also moksha can come. And that is why Shastram says very, very clearly, Jnanat eva kaivalyaha. From Jnanam alone can kaivalya come, can moksha come. Right. Now, can karma give moksha? That's a good question. Can action remove ignorance? If action can remove ignorance, then, you know, we need not have schools and colleges, right? What should you do? Give lot of karma to our children. You know, clean this, clean that, take this book, take that back. Maybe they can just lift the chemistry books up and down. It's all karma. So slowly, slowly, Ajnanam should go, right? So one day chemistry Ajnanam goes, one day botany Ajnanam goes. No, for Ajnanam to go, Jnanam has to come. And Jnanam cannot come excepting by study. And therefore, one more thing we need to understand very clearly, and this might actually, you know, bring some disturbances in the mind of many students, because many students have heard from various sources that this can give moksha, that can give moksha. And here Vedanta says extremely clearly, karma cannot remove ignorance. Meditation cannot remove ignorance. Meditation cannot give moksha. Japa cannot give moksha. The only thing which can give moksha is jnana eva kaivalya. So this is emphasized in this first teaching sloka. Panditaha na anushochanti. And these panditaha, these jnanis, na anushochanti, they do not grieve. With regard to whom? Gatasuna, agatasuna. So gatasuna means the people from whom the breath has gone, the people from whom prana is no longer functioning, and therefore the dead people. They do not grieve for the dead people. Agatasunacha. They do not live for the living people only. So these are the only two possibilities, right? For which we grieve. Either we grieve for people who are living, or we grieve for people who are passed away. These are only two possibilities. And Krishna, by saying this, is eliminating both. All our worries are basically about the living people or the dead people. Okay. Now look at these two words. Normally, gata suna means just say gata gaya. Just says the breath has gone. Gata, breath has gone. Agata is breath has not gone. So living and non-living. But if you look at this two words, you can have another interpretation also. You know, gata suna can mean that which has gone by. So past, bhutkal. Gata suna can be bhutkal. Agata suna, that which is not gone, which means either the present Vartaman or the Bhavishyakal, future. So that is another interpretation. Gatasuna can be taken to mean that which has gone by, which is the past. Agatasuna can be taken to mean that it's not gone by, which is the present and future. And about both these, Panditaha na anushochanti. People do not, these wise people, these jnanis, they do not worry about the past. They do not worry about the future. They do not worry about the present also. So this is the opening statement of Krishna. That if you are a wise person, now tell me, if you do not worry about the past and the present and the future, is there any possibility that you are worrying?
No.
No. Worries take place in, normally worries take place in the past and the future, because the present is only an instant. Okay. But Krishna is saying that even that you can discount. So the jnani, he does not worry at all. He has zero worries. Having said that, then he says, hey Arjuna, the problem is what? Tvam asocyan anvashochaha. You, Tvam is you. Krishna is referring to Arjuna, of course. But significantly, as a teaching verse, this Tvam is all of us. Why is it significant? Because there is a Mahavakyam, Tat Tvam Asi. Entire Vedanta, remember, is nothing but an expansion, an explanation of this simple Mahavakyam, Tat Tvam Asi. You are Ishvara. You are Brahman. Tat is that. That means something which is far away from me. Tvam is you. Asi is the equation. Tat tvam asi means tat is equal to tvam. Tat here refers to Brahman or to Ishvara. Tvam refers to me, the Jiva, you, the Jiva. Therefore, Tvat Tvam Asi means you, Jiva, are nothing but Ishvara. This is the equation, right? Now, this equation is very important to understand before we launch into this Gita itself. One has to understand the, word before you can understand a sentence. In any Shastram, remember Shastram basically is trying to explain what cannot be explained in words by using words. So Brahman is said to be something which cannot be described. There are many mantras in Upanishad which says this Brahman cannot be described at all. And Maya also, we say that anirvachaniyam. It cannot be talked about. It cannot be understood at all. Therefore, if both Brahman and Maya cannot be understood, what is the point of Shastram? And therefore, Shastram uses words trying to explain to us what is normally not possible to explain using words. And therefore, Shastram is very strong on understanding exactly what a word means. So whenever we try to read Shastram, try to understand the Bhagavad Gita, we have to look very, very carefully at the word itself. And traditionally, when you study any Shastra, whether it be Gita or Upanishads, you study it along with grammar, Vyakarana Shastra, and Niruktam, the etymology, how it is derived. So these two sciences, Vyakaranam, grammar, Sanskrit grammar, and Niruktam, etymology, and Mimamsa, the analysis. These three are the legs on which our understanding stands. Of course, we are not going into it in the traditional manner, because while I am explaining some part of grammar, neither am I a Sanskrit scholar, nor many of you are Sanskrit scholars. So we can't go into it in a traditional way. So if you go to a proper traditional Gurukul, you'll find that grammar is taught using the Bhagavad Gita, instead of other way around. So you start with Bhagavad Gita, and then you take each word, you go to the grammatical derivation, and that's how the whole thing is put forward. Here we are trying to compress. So while we will do a lot of, explanation about words and their meanings, it is not a proper grammatical study of the Gita. Okay, so that's I said. A pada is what? What is the difference between pada and vakyam?
Pada is a usable, complete word.
Pada is a word, vakyam is a sentence. Okay, so we say without understanding the word, the sentence cannot be understood. Without understanding sentence, the Shastram cannot be understood. The sloka cannot be understood. So in Sanskrit, padartha jnanat vakyartha jnanam bhavati. The knowledge of a sentence, meaning of a sentence, vakyartha jnanam, meaning of a sentence, arises from padartha jnanam, from the knowledge of the meaning of the words. And that's why we are looking at each word, especially in this particular mantra, so carefully. Okay, so Ashochya. So Shankara says, Ashochya is a person who does not deserve your sympathy or compassion. So, not eligible to be grieved over. Ashochya. Those who should not be grieved over. And who are these people? Bhishma, Drona, all those people, he says, are Ashochya. Should not be grieved over. Now take anybody. We talk about Bhishma, Drona, etc. Take anybody. There are three aspects of a person. Now this is argument which you should follow very, very closely. Okay. for any jiva. We are saying Bhishma Drona because Arjuna is grieving over their possible death. So that is why we are using that Bhishma Drona. But in our lives, you can take it as anybody whose death or possibility of death is something which you will cry over. Okay. So such a person has three aspects. And what is that? The first one is Shariram. You cannot worry over the death of the body. Okay. Shariram comes from the dhatu, from a Sanskrit word Shriyate, that which decays. So Shriyate iti Shariram. The one which decays, that is Shariram. And there is a very, important another derivation. The word Deham. What is the Deham is also Shariram, right? What is the root for the word Deham? Dhatu.
Dahati.
Dahati. That which is to be burnt. That is the Deham. So the very name itself, it tells you what? That this body is meant to be destroyed. First word says it will be destroyed whether you like it or not. The second word says be prepared at some stage in your life that this body which you are so fond of, it is going to be put on the funeral pyre. Therefore, it is inevitable that this body will die. And you should not worry over the death of this body. Why? Because what is inevitable, is there any sense in worrying about it? So that is one of the reasons. Shariram is one of the aspects of a jiva. The death of that shariram, the destruction of that shariram, we should not worry about, because that destruction has to come. It may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but it is one of the basic nature of the body that it will die. Where did you read this in Tattvabodha? What is the reference?
The Shadvikara.
Chadvikara.
Right? Shadvikara means one of the vikaras is what? Mrityu. Vinashyati. It dies. And so here Krishna is saying, here Arjuna, the bodies of these people. Now when I say Krishna is telling Arjuna about Dronacharya, Krishna is also telling you about your loved ones. Okay, so that body is subject to destruction. It will be destroyed. It will be put on the funeral pyre, whether you like it or not. And therefore, nothing you can do can stop that body from finally going to the funeral pyre. When you can do nothing about it, when nothing is there in your hands to stop that journey to the graveyard, to the Samshan Ghat, what is the point of worry? Or what is the point of sorrow? So that is the first point, right? One aspect of the jiva is shariram. The second aspect is ahankara. Now the word ahankara has to be carefully understood. There are two usages of the word ahankara. One is Dharma Shastra usage and one is Vedanta usage. So Dharma Shastra usage of ahankara is in the negative sense. Oh, bada ahankari hai. Right? That fellow is very egoistic. So that is the negative usage. In the sense, it's an undesirable quality of pride and all that in a person. Pride, ego. That is Dharma Shastra usage. That is not the usage in which we are currently taking it. For us, ahankara is the Vedantic usage. What is ahankara in terms of Tattvabodha?
The I notion.
I
notion.
identity.
A more technical explanation.
Identification with the body, mind, sense complex. Identification with an Atma.
Use a word which you learned in Tattvabodha. I'll give you a small hint. Chidabhasa. What is Chidabhasa? In Tattva technical terms.
Reflected consciousness.
I see. Reflected consciousness. Okay. So now this Ahankara is taken as the RC, the reflected consciousness, the Chidabhasa. Now, if there is a reflected consciousness, what is the reflecting medium?
Mind.
Atma,
Yes.
The body.
body, but mind.
RM,
Sukshma Sharira.
there are two RMs. One is the gross body, one is the subtle body. Okay. The gross body is dead in this particular discussion. The gross body is dead, right? We are saying Ahankara, you need not worry about.
Sukshma Sharira.
Subtle.
So this Ahankara RM is Sukshma Shariram, right? RC here is the Jiva who is dropped the body. Remember, Jiva is not the combination of physical and subtle and consciousness. The RC essentially implies that OC is being reflected in Sukshma Shariram. OC cannot directly reflect in the body, physical body. Remember that. The physical body reflection comes because there is Sukshma Shariram in the body. So OC lends consciousness to Sukshma Shariram. It is only the RC which can lend consciousness to physical body. And here we are talking about the death of the physical body. That is why we say Shariram you cannot worry over because it has to be burnt finally. Ahankara here means the surviving Jiva. And therefore he is saying that, hey Arjuna, why are you worrying about Ahankara? Because Ahankara does not die when the physical body dies. Ahankara is Chidabhasa, the RC, the reflection of OC in the Sukshma Shariram. That entity, it will travel, no? That entity is what we call a traveling Jiva. Once the physical body is dead, that Jiva will travel. And that is why we do all those post-death rituals, according to Karma Kanda. 8th day, 11th day, 13th day, all those things are done for whom? For this traveling Chidabhasa. Right? Now, yes.
What is the meaning? I mean, how do you break Chidabhasa?
Chit
Chit
plus Abhas.
Abhas.
Chit
Huh?
plus Abhas. As if consciousness.
Okay.
Why as if?
Because it borrows the consciousness from the OC and it appears that the consciousness is coming through it.
Excellent. So it is a as if OC. So Chit Abhasa. Abhasa of Chit. Okay. That is a reflected consciousness. So now, this Arjuna, this Ahankara is not going to die. The RC is not going to die. It will keep on traveling. And also, you know, all these people, Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya and all those people, they are supposed to be people who are of very dharmic nature. They would have got a lot of punyam. And therefore, the jiva will go where? Only to higher lokas because of good karma. And therefore, Krishna is saying, hey Arjuna, Ahankara you need not worry about because that jiva will travel and go to a better life only. So Shariram you need not worry about because you can't do anything about it. Death is certain for that which is born. Ahankara you need not worry about because Ahankara doesn't die. What is the third component? The OC, the Atma itself. Does the Atma travel?
No.
Atma is everywhere.
So Atma does not travel. Atma does not die. Atma does not move. Atma is always there. And therefore that all-pervading Sarvagata Chit Atma, why should you worry about? It will not travel, nor will it die, nor will it change. So Nitya Sarvagataha Sthanuhu.
Sorry? Nitya?
Sarvagataha Sthanuhu. Nitya eternal, Sarvagataha all-pervading, Sthanuhu not moving. This is the Paramatma. And that Paramatma, that Paramatma, you need not worry about because nothing ever happens to that Paramatma. So from all these 3 points, Arjuna, there is no justification for grieving. And Krishna is saying, which Bhishma are you worrying about? Shariram, Ahankara, or Atma? And that same question you should ask yourself whenever there is the possibility of death for somebody. If it is XYZ in your family, you should ask yourself, which XYZ am I going to cry? The Shariram, or the Ahankara, or the Atma? And then Krishna says, Anvashochaha. In spite of the fact that Ashochya is there. Remember all that we explained just now. The 3 aspects is an expansion of which word? Ashochya. Why you should not grieve. Having said that, Krishna says, from Anvashochaha, you are still grieving for these people who do not deserve any grief. And why are you grieving? Shankara says, now this is not there in the Moolam. Shankara gives the reason. Te mat nimittam mriyante. These people, they will die because of me alone. Why me alone? Because I am a warrior who cannot be defeated. And when I face them in battle, as I will, they will die because of me. And therefore, there is guilt. And of course, there is the attachment. Vina bhutaha kim karishyami. What will I do without them? So remember, this is not academic discussion, okay? This is not a discussion for the purpose of,
Explain once more.
yeah.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
please explain once more?
Say what?
Anvashocha.
Anvashocha simply means grieving. You are grieving.
No, te mataha, what did you say?
So that is Shankara's words. Te
I know.
mataha. Te, those people, mat, mine, nimittam because of me, mriyante, die. Te mat nimittam mriyante. These people will die because of me. Why will they die because of me? Because he is the warrior. He is warrior, he cannot be defeated. And when you face a warrior who cannot be defeated, what happens to you? You die. And therefore, Dronacharya will die and Bhishma will die. And therefore, the first emotion is they will die because of me. That is what Shankara means. That te mat nimittam mriyante, these people die because of me. What is our emotion?
Guilt.
Guilt. And then, of course, there is the attachment. What will I do without them? And therefore,
Te mataha, mataha means?
mat is me, man. Me.
Okay. Nimittam means
Nimittam.
it's certain. It's
No,
certain.
nimittam means the cause.
Okay.
Nimitta
And
karanam, upadana karanam. I'm sure you've learned all these words.
okay. And priyate?
Mriyante. Mriyante is will die.
Mriyate.
So I suggest you don't look too much at the Sanskrit because not everybody knows. So what will I do without them? This is the bane. 2 things are there. They will die because of me. What will I do without them? So what are the 2 big problems? Guilt and the emptiness I will face in my life after they are gone. These 2 are basically the problems for all of us. Why did I not do that? Uske bagar main kya karunga? All these 2 things, guilt and emptiness of life, these are the 2 biggest problems. And Shankara, remember, Bhashyakara, the commentator, Shankaracharya, in this 2 words, guilt and attachment, he has summarized the entire chapter. A beautiful way of doing. And you should remember this 32nd verse, if I remember correctly, the first chapter. Na kangshe vijayam Krishna, na cha rajyam sukhani cha, kim no rajyena govinda, kim bhogair jivitena va. That is one word, one verse. The other one is yesham arthe kangshitam naha, rajyam bhoga sukhani cha, te ime avastitha yuddhe, pranan styaktva dhanani cha. Verse number 32 and verse number 33 should be recalled and their meanings understood when we are having this discussion. Okay, now by addressing Arjuna, remember that Krishna is addressing all of us at the same time. So Arjuna is in a different situation, we are in a different situation. So situations, even when situations are the same, reactions of different people vary. Do you agree with the statement?
Yes.
Why so?
Yes.
Me
We have
too.
different perspectives.
According to Jnanam,
According to the attachment to the object.
Yeah, so let me give a very common example. I mean, it's in light humor, so don't take it seriously. When the mother-in-law enters the house, different reactions are triggered in the husband and the wife. Why?
Because of
The level of
attachment.
attachment.
Because the level of attachment, the relationships, right? And therefore, remember, it is not the event which is important. It is the emotion which is attached to the event. We are all conditioned to attach emotions to events. And this is incorrect. Your emotions are a result of your likes and dislikes. And emotions incorrectly attached to events are the cause of all our problems. So that is and what are problems? Problems are basically dukkha, sorrow. So then we have to now conduct an inquiry. The next step of this discussion is, what is the main problem in life? Sorrow, dukkha. Okay, which is why Krishna started with shoka. He says, tam ashochaha. You are grieving for those who should not be grieved. So, dukkham, grief is the main inquiry over here. Now, why do we need to conduct an inquiry into sorrow? Because basically all of us want to be happy, right? Anybody among us who does not want to be happy, if you are asked, what is your basic purpose in life? What would you say?
To be happy.
Happy.
To be happy.
Be happy.
Ultimately, everybody wants to be happy. Whatever they are doing, they want to be happy. And there is a Upanishad called the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, wherein the teacher tells the student, who in this case happens to be his wife. So he tells her that Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. He says, when you love somebody, remember, you are not loving that person for that person's sake. You are loving Atmanastu kamaya, for your own sake you are loving. Why is that? Supposing, let us take a very simple example. Supposing I have a dog whom I love a lot. I say at least, I love my dog. Okay. Why do I love my dog? Because the dog gives me happiness. Now, what happens when that same dog, becomes a bit hostile towards me? Then that dog no longer gives me happiness. And therefore, I try to get rid of that dog. So do I really love the dog? Or do I really love the fact that the dog was an instrument in giving me happiness? Which is the right answer?
Second one.
The second one.
Right? It's always like that. Whenever you say, I love somebody or I love something, remember that love is contingent upon you being happy in that relationship. It is a very hard fact, okay? Most of us have been conditioned about selfless love and all that. But the point is that you love something or somebody only when that something or somebody is a source of happiness for you. As long as it remains as a source of happiness, then you love. The day that changes, that love is stopped. So which is the source of happiness? Is it you or is it the object? In this case, the dog.
Object is becoming the source of happiness.
No.
You yourself are the
Yeah.
No, we are loving because
You
your
yourself
feelings
are
towards
the source of
the object.
happiness, but the object triggers off that happiness. The happiness is in you only. You know, let me tell you the story of one small story, which will make it easy to understand. So there was this dog who was feeling hungry. Okay. And it was on a beach. So it went around looking for a bone. Finally, it found a bone on the beach. Now that bone had been lying on that beach for months, maybe years. So it is absolutely dry bone. But of course, the dog, being the dog, didn't understand all that. So it started biting the bone and kept on biting the bone. The bone broke into pieces and when it was in its mouth, and the sharp pieces cut the dog's mouth and blood began to come from the mouth. And the dog tasted the blood and was very happy. Why?
taste of blood.
Thought it
Because
was
of the blood
from
was in
the
the
bone.
It thought it was the blood coming from the bone. So what was the role of the bone? The role of the bone is to trigger off the blood, which is where? Not in the bone, which is in the dog itself. This is the almost the exact comparison for happiness. You by nature have this ananda as a source, but to trigger the ananda, you need a external object. So just like you have got reflected consciousness, you have the concept of reflected ananda also. That object reflects the ananda, and that is why you can enjoy the ananda. So with this background, now let us do a proper inquiry into what exactly is sorrow. So ananda is basically what we want. The objective is ananda. Why do we not experience ananda? Because of dukkham, because of sorrow. And therefore, the first inquiry should be, what is the source of sorrow? So this is the first inquiry which we are conducting. Now, a jiva consists of two parts. Again, pair of Tattvabodha. What are the two parts? Atman and Anatman. So, in terms of Tattvabodha, the OC plus the RM is the jiva. OC plus RM is what?
The Jivatma.
RC. OC plus RM is the RC. Okay. RC is the jivatma. Now, first you look into Atman. What is the nature of Atman? For understanding that, you have only one source. That is the Shastram. Shastram tells you that Atma Swarupa is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So existence, consciousness and bliss, happiness is the very nature of the Atman. Right? Therefore, obviously, if your very nature is happiness, obviously Atman cannot be the source of sorrow. Why? Because if Atman was the source of sorrow, supposing you say that sorrow is my nature. Now remember, what is nature? Nature is that which cannot be changed. And when you are resting in your own nature, you are most comfortable, you are most content. That is why it's your nature, right? Now, if sorrow was your nature, then you will get an interesting contradiction. Because if sorrow was your nature, then you will be happy when you are sad. Why? Because you are resting in your own nature. A straight away contradiction. And therefore, Shastram says so that you are Satchitananda. Logic also says that sorrow cannot be your nature because you are not happy when you are sorrowful. Okay. With both these things, what is the conclusion? That Atman cannot be the source of sorrow, right? For example, whatever is not your nature, whatever is your nature, the other way around, whatever is your nature can never be a cause for any real concern. Do you agree? When something is your own nature, then can it be a cause for concern? Okay, let me give an example since you are doubtful about this. 2-month-old baby, when will you get concerned? If it is restless and shouting and moving around all over the place, or if it is suddenly sitting down and meditating?
When the baby
Second
dies.
one.
Sitting down and meditating.
If the baby suddenly begins to go into Nidhi Dhyasanam, it's a cause for great concern, right? Why? Because the restless baby is the nature of the baby, and therefore it is not a cause of concern. Therefore, fact that you are Satchitananda, that you are happy, it should never be a cause of concern. Okay. Now, Shankara also puts forward one more very practical view. If you are dead, you have no problem, right? Now, if you are dying, whereas it's a very practical, way of looking. For this, to understand this, you have to remove the emotion from your mind, the attachment to your body from the mind. Then only will you understand the statement. So he says, if you are dying and that cannot be changed, what is it that you will do with your time? One is you can start moaning about the fact that you're about to die. The other is you can do something practical with yourself, with your time. There is no point in crying about your death if you are indeed dying. And therefore, it is better to use that time for something practical, right? Similarly, sorrow about the one who is dead does not bring him back. Sorrow about the dead does not alter any fact. The ones who are dead do not need us to cry for them. The dying also do not need us to cry for them. And therefore, we have to understand that grief or sorrow, from a very practical point of view, is completely useless because it changes nothing in your life. And from point of view of the other person, of the Vaidika, who believes that Jiva survives death of the body, from his point also, sorrow is useless, right? So the first point is Atman cannot be the source of sorrow. What remains? Anatman. Now, Anatman by nature is subject to Shadvikara. It is constantly changing. And as we said before, what cannot be helped, what cannot be addressed, there is no point in being sorrowful about what cannot be changed. Can the Shadvikara nature of Anatman change? No. And if it cannot be changed, when you grow old, when you have wrinkles on your face, when your hair falls off, when you fall sick, when you die, there is no point in being sorrowful because none of those things will change what is going to happen. Very, very harsh words. But are they true or not?
Yes,
Absolutely
absolutely.
true.
And the fact is here, can we accept them or not? Remember that when any Shastric teaching brings resentment into your mind, brings a passionate reply, it's an indication that it is your raga dvesha which is functioning and not your buddhi. So these kind of teachings, you will find that the first reaction will be a little bit of disturbance, a little bit of irritation, a little bit of anger. At that time, we should tell ourselves that it's my raga dvesha which is functioning. Let me put it aside. Let me look at my intellect only. Okay. So this is part of the teaching. So now this is an interesting question. We said that neither Atma is the cause of sorrow, nor Anatma is the cause of sorrow. Then, if there are only two pieces to me, Atma, Anatma, how does then that sorrow arise? Because it's neither there in Anatma, nor is it there in Atma. So if both Anatma and Atma cannot be the source of sorrow, then Shastra says, then that sorrow is based on some error in your thinking, some mistake in your thinking. What is that mistake? The mistake is that I am this body, mind, sense complex. That is called adhyasa. So sorrow is basically based on that adhyasa, that superimposition that I am basically the body. And therefore, the whole purpose of Shastram is to make us understand that I am not the body. This is the basic teaching. Once the understanding is there, I am Brahman and not the body, I am Atma and not the body, then what is the
So your
understanding?
voice is freezing.
Is it?
No,
Everybody?
it's all right. No, it's all
All
right.
right.
So it's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, the whatever portions you have not heard, you can always do on the recording. Okay.
Yes, sir. What did you say? Adhyasa.
Adhyasa means superimposition. So adhyasa means error which I have superimposed upon the truth. For example, the normal example we give is the snake which you see on a rope when there is no light, when there is a dim light. There is no real snake. There is only the rope. But on that rope, you have imagined a snake. That imagination is the error. That error is the cause for fright. If you really knew that there was no snake there and only the rope was there, that fright would not be there. But the fright is a very, very much a real emotion. You are frightened because you think there is a snake. That thought is an error. That error is the adhyasa, superimposing a non-existent snake on an existent rope.
So superimposing the unreal on the real.
Superimposing the non-existent, you might say. Unreal is a very different meaning in this context, so I'm not using that word. Okay. How does Krishna convey this? He says, Prajna Vadamscha Bhashase. Hey Arjuna, you are speaking like a wise person. You are pretending to be a wise person. How? Because in the entire first chapter, Arjuna talked about Kulakshaya, Kuladharma, Varuna Sankhara, all these things he talked about, which indicates that you are a jnani. But if you are really a jnani, you would not be grieving at all. You would not be having any grief. So you have just pretended to be a jnani by giving me all that jnana, but at the same time, you are grieving. Therefore, you are not a jnani. You are subject to all the problems of anatma. So Krishna knew that he had to convert Arjuna into a jnani. Right? The problem of sorrow would vanish the moment that Arjuna got jnanam. And the learning from here is that the events, in this case, the battle and the upcoming death of Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya, those events need not change. Only the outlook to those events from a Ajnani's outlook to a Jnani's outlook had to happen. And therefore, Arjuna, what you require is Jnana. Remember here, there is a very specific rule in Shastram. Unless somebody asks for Atma Vidya, you should not give Atma Vidya. So in the strict tradition, in the strict parampara, Atma Vidya can be given only when the student explicitly asks. Even if he is sitting in front of you, if he is not asked to be given Atma Jnanam, he should not be given. Now remember that in the entire run-up so far, has Arjuna asked for Atma Jnanam?
He has become student.
Yes, he said.
He has become a student. But has he said, give me Atma Jnanam?
No, no. He just asked for advice.
Remember what he
Whether
has
what
said.
time-
He says that Karpanya dosho upahata subhava. I am confused.
Mhm.
Dharma sammuda chetaha. I am confused between dharma and adharma. So he actually asked for a lecture on what is dharma and what is adharma. But Krishna does not give him that. Krishna violates this tradition and gives him Atma Jnana. Why? Shankara explains in his commentary that Arjuna's confusion is not because of ignorance of Dharma Shastra. Why? Because he has got Dharma Shastra along with his brothers. And Yudhishthira is Dharma Raja himself. Right? He is supposed to be the epitome of Dharma. So he got the same Jnanam along with his brother. Therefore, it cannot be ignorance of Dharma Shastra, which is the cause of Arjuna's confusion. So Arjuna's confusion is not born of Dharma Ajnana. It is Raga Dvesha. Raga Dvesha is not born out of Dharma Adharma, ignorance. It is born of Atma Ajnana. And therefore Krishna decides that what Arjuna required is Atma Jnana. And of course, Arjuna also said, Yat Shreyaha Nishchitam. Tell me what is good for me. So, and therefore, in what is good for me, as opposed to what is pleasant for me. Therefore, it was Krishna's responsibility to tell Arjuna what was good for him. And Shreya can be taken to mean moksha, and therefore there is no violation of tradition. So if you look at the words, Ashochan and Mashochastvam refers to the sorrow problems, shoka problem of Arjuna. Prajna Vadamsha Bhasase indicates moha problem. Why moha? Because there is delusion, right? So Ashochan and Mashochastam is the shoka problem, is the sorrow problem. Prajna Vadamsha Bhasase is the moha problem. Joined together, these two problems indicate samsara. Arjuna is a samsari, and you have to remember the words Shishyaste aham shadimam tvam prapannam. I have surrendered to you, teach me. That surrender indicates that he has surrendered to the teacher and he is a adhikari, one who is entitled to receive the knowledge. Okay. Couple of more points. Panditaha here should be taken as Atma Jnana, the one who is enlightened. Remember that in the Sanskrit dictionary, Pandita means scholar. And therefore, why should it be Atma Jnani and not Dharma Shastra Jnani? Shankara says, gives the answer to this in his commentary. He says Bhagavad Gita is based on Veda. And therefore, Prakarane, you have to give the contextual meaning only. The contextual meaning is derived from the words Atma Vishaya Buddhihi Pandaha. Pandaha means Atma Vishaya Buddhihi. Here Buddhi means knowledge, and therefore Panda means Atma Vishaya Jnanam, the knowledge about Atma. And the ita suffix is there in Shankaracharya's Bhashyam. He says Esham Te, those who possess. Therefore, Pandita means those who possess Atma Jnana. Okay, so remember that during the teaching, you have to remember always that Veda has two aspects of teaching. Pravritti, Atmaka Shastra, where the Karta remains. And so you have to engage yourself in activity, accomplishment of some Arthakama, all this is activity. And activity is always threefold: manasika, vachika, kayika. That is the first part of the Veda. Karma Kanda, the entire Karma Kanda caters to this portion, caters to the Karta. Remember, it is the Karta who is the Adhikari for Karma Kanda. The second part of the Veda is in Nivritti Atmaka Shastram, where the Karta is negated. And therefore, the Adhikari for the second part, Vedanta, is basically the one who has dropped karma. So here Ashocyan Anvashochaha reveals the Vishaya, Atma, in the form of negation. Nivritti. The Karta has to be negated. The essence of this whole verse is what I told you, that see that when you superimpose something upon something, there are two aspects. The support on which something is superimposed, right? So in the case of the snake and the rope is called the Adhishthanam. Adhishthanam, that which is supporting the superimposed snake. So this reality is called Satyam. The superimposed snake is called Mithya. And what is now being conveyed in the whole Shastram is that the Mithya will never affect the Satyam. The Adhyasa, superimposed snake, should never really affect the real rope. And if you find the rope is being affected, then you should know that there is an error somewhere. And the correction of that error itself is our entire Shastram's exercise. So with this, I'll stop if you have any questions.
Pranam Raviji, I have only one question that yes, it is inevitable that body will be distracted, but the time doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. Time is your own prarabdha.
Okay.
Some people have longer prarabdha, some people have shorter prarabdha.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Om Acharya.
Om.
Yeah. So can you explain that you said the problem doesn't arise at Atma and also Anatma?
Yeah.
Like, then where is the problem?
The problem is because you have thought, see, if you really understood the fact, Anatma is Shadvikara, then you will not grieve for it. Atma, there is no grief possible. And therefore, if you are grieving, obviously there's a mistake in your mind. What is that mistake? That I am the body. I am the Anatma is the mistake. That is why you are grieving.
But that is also part of Anatma, right? Like, how can we negate that that's not Anatma?
We are not negating. We are saying Anatma is subject to disease and death.
Yes.
And there is what you cannot help, what you cannot control. Over that, only one way is possible. You have to accept. And when you accept something, there will never be any grief about that thing.
It means it is because of Agyan.
It's because of Ajnanam. Whole Gita is about the removal of Ajnanam from your mind.
So,
yeah.
When the time has come, that is prarabdha, and the way the person goes, that is also prarabdha, whether in sorrow or peace.
Yeah. All that is prarabdha.
Does it depend on the next life where he's going to go? He's going to go to a bad place. He's going to be
No. Next life is completely independent of this life. So next life depends upon the next set of prarabdha.
The end moments are also the previous prarabdha.
Yeah, everything is prarabdha of that life until the body is dropped. The prarabdha is the gum which holds the body together. When the prarabdha is over, the body will drop.
Is
Om
the
Acharya.
allotted karmas from the Sanchit?
Yeah, prarabdha comes from Sanchita only, yes.
So it's allotted for this life.
Yes.
Om Acharya.
Yeah.
The last part that you said, does that basically mean that the entire learning is about the fact that both karta and karma are reflected consciousness, and hence we are moving towards, the journey is to understand that these both are reflected consciousness, and they are not part of the actual Jivatma.
They are not part of you, actually. That's it. You are the OC.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about finally even dropping karma.
Yeah, because karma is done by the RC, right? RC is the karta. As long as you think you're RC, you cannot avoid karma. As long as you cannot avoid karma, you cannot avoid karma phalam. As long as you cannot avoid karma phalam, you cannot avoid sorrow.
So till the time I'm here, the karta and the karma exists, but the journey is to understand that it is beyond.
Well, I would disagree, and I would say that the definition of I which you use needs to be changed.
Acha, huh. Okay.
When you say I
Till the
right
time
now,
the body is here. Till the time the body is here.
you reword that statement to say that till the time the body is here, the body will do its work. The body will experience sorrow, body will experience happiness. Why should I bother?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Right.
It's really getting out of your body.
I don't know. It's disowning your body as yourself. That is the right question. You should disown that body as myself.
Acharya-ji, could you clarify the abbreviations OC and RM?
Alkaji, you have not done Tattvabodha?
Started.
Yeah, so it'll all come in that. OC is original consciousness, RC is reflected consciousness, RM is reflecting medium. Those are extremely important concepts. Once they are thoroughly in your mind, then only can you really go ahead with Bhagavad Gita. That is why I keep saying that don't stop with the first Tattvabodha. Tattvabodha we are trying to keep on a rolling basis. So keep enrolling.
This is my first. This is my first one, and it's just
so
about that.
after the first one, go to the second one, go to the third one.
Yes.
There are many here in this group who are on the third or fourth one. So once complete clarity is there, yes, then you can avoid that.
Thank you, Acharya-ji.
Om Raviji, I have a question here. Say when you're, is it possible that a person, when he or she is young, and at that time they are mostly, in this thinking of jnana without attachments, without any of this, whatever we are trying to reach a state to. But once this person gets married and becomes a part of the samsara for say 20-25 years, and then one fine day she or he realizes that okay, this is samsara, and you were like that before, and is it possible for this person to go back to, there's this memory that comes back again and again saying that you were like that but you have become like this. Can you go back to what you were, that naive, that pure, that whatever that character of yours? Or
Mangala, you are presuming that a grahastha is not pure. That's not correct. See, the only way in which you can attain a certain level of dispassion is to go through the grahastha life. Karma is not looked down upon. Karma is essential. It's like washing your hands before coming to dinner.
But that has given so much of all the what we talk about, grief and.
Without all that, without the ups and downs given by your karma, you would never understand the value of jnana. And that karma is what brings you to the realization that maybe there is something more. So karma is never to be discounted. It is very much part of your life. It has all the initial steps before you come to the top of the stairs.
Karma is a part of dharma.
Okay, those are all very serious statements. We'll discuss them, at
Thank you,
appropriate times. So, TK, with this we'll stop. Thank you guys for all your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya-ji.
Thank you.